Hey, Liam. How's everything going?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. It feels nice to just walk around for a bit.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day for it.
Definitely. You know what? I was thinking about something while we were walking.
Tell me everything, Emma. What's on your mind?
Why is it that I can understand English questions easily, but still freeze the moment it's my turn to answer?
Because those few seconds to gather your thoughts feel like forever. But that's the easiest part to fix.
What should I say when my brain needs a moment?
Just take a breath and say, "Let me think for a second."
That's so simple.
Exactly. You're telling the other person you need a quick moment without stopping the conversation. Like, "Let me think for a second. I'd probably recommend the park."
I like that. It sounds like I'm considering the question, not struggling with English.
Exactly. Pausing to think is completely normal. Native speakers do it constantly. It's not a failure, just part of natural conversation.
So, let me think for a second buys me time to gather my thoughts naturally.
Exactly. Keep simple phrases like that ready so you never feel trapped when your brain needs a second.
Can we try another phrase? What about situations where I don't know the answer completely? Sometimes I have an idea, but I'm not sure if it's correct.
That's when you use, "I'm not sure, but." It lets you answer without being 100% certain. For example, if someone asks for a coffee shop nearby, you can just say, "I'm not sure, but I think there's one around the corner."
That's so much easier. I'm not giving a definitive yes, there's one, but I'm also not shutting them down with, I don't know. I'm giving them what I know while being honest about my uncertainty.
Exactly. And that's something you can use in so many situations. You might say, "I'm not sure, but I think we can walk there." Or, "I'm not sure, but I've heard it's really good."
I think that uncertainty is another reason I freeze. I feel like I have to be completely sure of everything before I open my mouth. But real conversations don't actually work that way.
Right. Sometimes you're giving an opinion, sometimes you're guessing, and sometimes you're just trying to remember a detail. You just need to communicate what you know in the moment.
So, I'm not sure, but is another tool to keep the conversation moving.
Exactly. And notice the pattern we're building. The first phrase helps when you need time to think, and the second helps when you aren't completely certain.
There's another situation that happens to me constantly. Sometimes I start speaking, and halfway through the sentence, I realize I don't actually want to say it that way. What should I do?
That's where "I mean" becomes really useful.
I hear people say that all the time, but I've never really thought about why.
It's one of the easiest ways to adjust what you just said. Imagine you tell someone, "I went there last week." Then you suddenly remembered it was actually 2 weeks ago. You can simply say, "I mean, 2 weeks ago." You don't need to stop the conversation and rebuild the entire sentence from scratch.
So I can correct myself while I'm still talking.
Exactly. And that's much closer to how real conversations actually sound. People change their minds, they remember details, and they realize they could have explained something better. Nobody speaks from a perfect script.
That's actually really reassuring because I often think that if I make a mistake in the middle of a sentence, I've ruined the whole thing.
You haven't at all. You can simply keep going. That's one of the biggest differences between speaking naturally and trying to speak perfectly. Natural speakers know how to recover.
So if I say something and realize I want to change it, I can just say, I mean, and continue.
Exactly. And sometimes that tiny phrase is all you need to keep your conversation moving.
Let's try another one. Suppose someone asks me, did you enjoy the restaurant? And I say, not really. Then a second later, I realize, wait, I actually liked the food. It was just the service that was slow.
Perfect. So instead of freezing, you could say, "Not really. What I mean is the food was great, but the service was just a bit slow." Or imagine you tell someone, "I don't think I want to live here." Then you realize that's not quite what you meant. You could say, "What I mean is, I like the city, but I don't think I'd want to live here permanently."
Ah, I see. So I could just say, what I mean is the food was actually good, it was just the service. Wow, that's so much more natural than stopping and trying to restart the whole sentence from scratch.
Exactly. And the more comfortable you become with this kind of phrase, the less afraid you'll be of saying something imperfectly. You know you can always clarify as you go.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand the bigger picture now. These phrases are giving me different ways to handle different moments in a conversation. So, what happens when someone asks me a question that doesn't really have a single, straightforward answer?
That's when one of the most versatile phrases you can use comes in. It depends.
I hear that expression everywhere, but I never realized just how useful it could be for keeping a conversation going.
It's incredibly useful. Imagine someone asks, "What's the best place to eat around here?" That's not a simple question. The answer depends entirely on what they're looking for. You could say, "It depends on what kind of food you want." Now you've answered them, but you've also opened the door to keep the conversation flowing.
So instead of stressing out trying to name just one restaurant immediately, I can explain what the answer depends on. That's a fantastic idea.
Exactly. Maybe they want something casual. Maybe they're looking for a nice dinner. Or maybe they're trying to stay on a budget. There isn't always one perfect answer.
And saying it depends gives me a moment to organize my thoughts before I keep going.
Right. You can even use it for opinions. Someone might ask, "Would you rather live in a big city or a small town?" You could say, "It depends. I love the energy of a big city, but I also like having a quiet place to relax."
That sounds so much more natural than forcing myself to pick a side right away.
Exactly. You're not avoiding the question at all. You're just showing that your answer has a little more depth.
By this point, I've already realized something. When I'm speaking English, I always feel like the other person is waiting for me to answer immediately. Maybe that's why I panic so easily.
I know that feeling all too well. It's very common, but real conversations aren't a race. If someone asks you a question and you need a moment, you can take that moment naturally. You can say, "Let me think for a second," or "It depends." And suddenly, you have space to breathe.
So these expressions are almost like little bridges. They take me smoothly from the question to the answer.
That's a great way to think about them. Without the bridge, you might freeze completely. With the bridge, you keep moving forward.
That's fantastic. So what's another phrase I can use when I need a little time?
Try. That's a good question.
I always thought people only said that when they didn't know the answer.
Not at all. You use it when a question genuinely makes you stop and think. For example, imagine someone asks, "What's something you've always wanted to do?" That's a deep question, so you naturally need a second. You could say, "That's a good question. I've always wanted to."
And it doesn't sound like I'm struggling with my English at all. It sounds like I actually appreciate their question.
Exactly. It makes the conversation feel more thoughtful, and it works especially well when someone asks you something unexpected.
Let me try. That's a good question. I think I'd love to spend a few months traveling around the country.
See? That sounded completely natural.
And I didn't feel rushed at all.
That's exactly what we're aiming for. The goal isn't to eliminate every single pause. The goal is to make your pauses feel natural and comfortable.
Liam, let's say someone asks me, would you ever live somewhere completely different? I could say, I've never really thought about it. I guess I'd like to experience it for a while.
That's perfect. Now imagine they ask, "Would you ever change careers?"
I've never really thought about it, but I guess it depends on the opportunity.
Exactly. And notice how naturally that connects to another phrase we've already covered.
It depends.
Right. And that's another key point I want you to notice. You don't have to use these phrases in isolation. They can stack together. One phrase gives you time to think, another helps you shape your answer, and a third helps you explain your opinion.
So I can actually combine them depending on how the conversation goes?
Exactly. You might say, "That's a good question. I've never really thought about it, but I guess it depends on the situation." Look at that. You've built a completely natural response without rushing yourself at all.
And that sounds so much more like a real conversation than stressing out to produce one perfect sentence right away.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
You mentioned another phrase that I hear all the time. I guess. I understand what it means, but why is it so useful when you're speaking?
Because it lets you give an opinion without making it sound too strong or too final. Imagine I ask, would you rather live in a big city or a small town? You might have an opinion, but maybe you're not completely certain. You could say, I guess I'd choose a big city.
So it sounds more relaxed than saying, I'd definitely choose a big city.
Exactly. I guess leaves some room. It tells the other person, this is what I'm thinking right now. You're not presenting your answer like it's an absolute fact.
That sounds useful for conversations, because people don't always have completely fixed opinions. Sometimes you start answering and realize you're still thinking about it.
That's exactly why it's useful. For example, someone might ask, what's the best place you've ever visited? You could say, I guess I'd say New York. There's something about the energy there that I really like. You gave an answer, but left room to explain your reasoning.
Like this. I guess I'd rather spend the afternoon walking around than staying inside.
Perfect. Notice how natural that sounds. You didn't need to make a big decision before speaking, you simply gave your current thought.
So I don't have to treat every answer as final?
Exactly. Conversations aren't final answers, they're exchanges. You can change your opinion, add details, say, actually, or realize halfway through that you feel differently. That's completely normal.
I knew these phrases, but never thought to actually use them.
That's very common. Knowing an expression when you hear it is one skill. Having it ready when you need it is another. We need to focus on when a phrase helps you.
So it's about matching the phrase to the right moment?
Exactly. For I've never thought about it, you don't need a definition. Just recognize when someone asks something you've genuinely never considered.
And I guess is for sharing an opinion without sounding too certain.
Exactly. Connect phrases to situations and they become much easier to remember.
What about when I know the answer but completely forget the word?
That's when give me a second comes in.
I can just ask them to wait?
Yes, very naturally. Imagine someone asks, what's the name of that restaurant we went to? You know it, but it's not coming to you immediately. You can say, give me a second. I can't remember the name. Now you're still in control of the conversation.
I like that because I'm not pretending I know something I can't remember. I'm just asking for a moment.
Exactly. That brief pause buys you time and often the other person will even help you out. Either way, it keeps things comfortable.
So instead of panicking, I just say, give me a second.
Right. Keep it simple. Under pressure, a short, familiar phrase is much easier to recall than something complex.
I definitely make things harder by trying to sound too advanced when I'm nervous.
Exactly. Simplify when it gets tough. The goal is communication.
Let's combine them in a real conversation.
Sure. If you could live anywhere for a year, where would you go?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about it. I guess somewhere new. Give me a second. Maybe a place with lots of outdoors.
See? You didn't know right away, but you never froze.
So phrase number 10 is for when I know what to say, but not how to say it?
Exactly. Use how should I put this? It buys you time to search for words without stopping the conversation.
I love that. So instead of freezing, I just say, how should I put this, and think out loud?
Precisely. For example, how should I put this? The city is exciting, but I wouldn't live here. You start speaking before the thought is fully organized.
That's huge for me. I usually wait until my sentence is 100% ready before opening my mouth.
And that creates huge pressure. Speaking out loud actually helps your brain find the rest of the sentence. They allow you to keep speaking while your brain is still working.
Now that we've gone through all 10, can we try a real conversation without stopping to explain each phrase? I want to see if I can actually use them naturally.
Absolutely. Let me ask you some unexpected questions. What's something you've always wanted to learn?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about it that way. I guess I'd love to learn how to play an instrument.
Nice. Now, what instrument would you choose?
Give me a second. I think I'd probably choose the piano. I've always liked the sound of it.
Great. Now, would you ever give up your current career to do something completely different?
How should I put this? I don't think I'd change everything overnight, but I'd definitely consider it if the right opportunity came along.
And there it is. You didn't freeze.
I almost did. But instead of waiting silently, I used a phrase and kept talking.
Exactly. That's the skill we're building.
What surprised me most is that these phrases don't just find words. They keep me calm while I access what I already know.
That's the secret. You just need a few reliable expressions to buy your brain time.
One last challenge, Liam. Ask me something unexpected, no prep.
If you could wake up tomorrow with one master skill, what would it be?
That's a good question. Give me a second. I guess I'd choose a skill that lets me create easily, like writing or music, so I can turn my ideas into reality. But I suppose it depends on the project.
Oh, look at that. You paused, you gathered your thoughts, but you never froze because you kept the conversation moving.
Wow, you're right. Fluency isn't about instant perfection, it's about staying connected without panicking when your mind needs a moment.
Exactly. And now we want to hear from you. Which of these phrases are you going to start using today? Drop your answer in the comments below.
Yes, let us know. I finally feel confident taking a second to think, but Liam, what if I want my sentences to sound even smoother and more natural?
Ah, that's the ultimate secret. In our next lesson, we're sharing the simple trick to speaking smooth English so you can connect your thoughts effortlessly.
Oh, I am definitely not missing that one. Click right here to watch it with us.
See you in the next lesson.
Bye, everyone.